What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Paris Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackhead Radio.
Hack you. Hack you.
Radio.
Hack you. Hack you.
Radio.
Honk? What?
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Good evening and welcome to 2015 with the Sackheads Radio Show. It is the 7th of January to be exact. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is our inaugural 2015 show.
It's awesome. You know what would be even better?
If we had something to talk about tonight?
Yeah, it's one of those slow news days. Always good to start off
Breaking
the show.
news.
We do have breaking news. Apparently, and CNN and Fox are both reporting that one of the suspects in the attack in Paris today is in custody. The 18-year-old. We will talk more about that in the Terror Block segment coming up in a few minutes. But 2 still outstanding, 1 in custody. I am excited.
I'm excited, too. And I know you cannot let yourself get as excited.
Exactly.
Because you're like, to use your own words against you,
no, it's true.
a kid at Christmas.
I am like a kid at Christmas. Anytime something big's happening, I get all excited.
Party in Vegas.
Yeah, party in Vegas.
Work in Vegas.
July. Work. Oh, yeah, work, definitely. Work in Vegas, not a party in Vegas.
Well, it's a party because the Sackheads are going to be there.
Everything's a party when the Sackheads show up. The
Everything
Sackheads are going to
everything
Freedom
is
Fest, ladies and
a
gentlemen.
party when the Sackheads show up.
SHR Media will be represented at Freedom Fest this year, one way or the other.
Preferably the other.
Hopefully,
because
Blondie
one way is too easy.
Why didn't I have Blondie queued up? Oh, right, because Sacco's not out of the cage. Because that would be awesome to have that song played right there. One way.
Why do you sing? I already had dinner with Ronnie Millsap tonight.
Also,
so our friends have heard me talk about Sean's sunglasses in studio.
Yes.
Because they're prescription, and for whatever reason, you have an aversion to getting clear lenses.
I don't have an aversion. I just forget them.
So it's dark outside, like weather-wise. That's not a racial term. And it's dark outside, and we are in Togo's ordering sandwiches. And I look down the counter, and there I see Ronnie Millsap, a.k.a. Sean. And the best part is they were playing Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Okay.
And people are going to think I'm lying right now.
No, and this is the funniest part about this.
But they were playing I Like Big Butts and I Cannot Lie by Sir
in
Mix-a-Lot.
Togo's.
In Togo's.
At 6 o'clock at night.
And Sean has his sunglasses on, and he's weaving his head back and forth, looking like Stevie Wonder.
I was busting to Sir Mix.
Ronnie Millsap.
You
did not have to expose your licorice thong and
you know
start
what?
slapping your ass.
It's one of those things when I hear that song, I cannot lie. No, it was the weirdest dinner music
It actually was.
ever. There was a whole bunch of like semi-inappropriate songs. You know, and I know Ken's show, and thank you so much to the Exceptional One for really doing an outstanding job on his show. But Ken was talking about prudes earlier, and, you know, we're no prude by any stretch of the imagination.
I think people get that from listening to the show.
And even we were both like, yeah, this probably shouldn't be playing
not.
right now.
Yeah, probably not. I remember that song like in high school.
Dude, right.
Right?
Blaring it on my Walkman. By the way, the CES, the big electronics show, is in Vegas this week. You know, Sony's going to...
CES does not stand for Big Electronics Show.
No, Consumer Electronics Show
would be
in Vegas.
BES, Big Electronics Show.
Did you know that Sony's going to re-release the Walkman?
To play what?
This is what I don't
like
understand.
Like MP3 format?
MP3,
like 8-track,
HD
cassettes?
radio.
What are we talking about?
It's going to have the new HD radio, the one that I just don't understand. It's radio, but...
They know the iPod failed, right?
Right. And that's the biggest thing is everyone can get whatever they want on their phone right now. And I can even get FM radio on my phone now. There's no need for me to go out and spend a Walkman.
You get SHR Media on your phone?
Absolutely. You go to shrmedia.com and download the Live 365 app or maybe on Spreaker even. It's one of those things I was like, all right, well, I guess they're trying to break into that market. Maybe Sony's going to start doing phones down the line, and this is kind of their precursor, which is what Apple did with the iPod. Ron thinks that Sacco has escaped. We're afraid to mention it.
That's not true. Sacco wouldn't escape because he can't run faster than...
700 feet. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter how fast he can't run, measured in feet per second. But just know that he can't.
So I was reading up on it. I'm like, oh, you know what, though? It's kind of cool. I remember back in the day with Sony and my Walkman, and I had the bright yellow Sport one at one point that was waterproof.
With your Varnays.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah, with my members-only jacket. My jeans were pegged, and I had Converse Chuck Taylors on. Either way.
I had Bugle Boys
Ooh,
that pegged.
You must have came from the right side of the tracks. Mine were Tough Skins.
Tough Skins? As a little kid, I had Tough Skins with my
awesome.
Zips.
Yes.
Zips tennis shoes?
So anyhow, guess how much they're projecting the retail cost of this thing to be?
$75.
You would think reasonable, right?
I would think $30.
$1,200.
What?
$1,200
For a Walkman?
for a Walkman.
No.
I'd pay $1,200 for an original Walkman. Maybe it's a collector's item at this point.
You know what I'd pay $1,200 for?
A lot of things.
Do you remember the old record players with like
Yes.
the hard plastic records?
Yes.
That you said, like the Fisher Price one? I would pay for that.
That would be awesome. I would love.
And you know which one I'm talking about.
I would love. You know how like you see in neighborhoods where like kids have like their radio out there or they're mixing against each other, whatever they do now, where they have the mixing. I would love to show up to one of those like rap concerts or
Mary
music.
has a turntable.
Oh,
I have two turntables and a microphone. Right.
Where it's at.
It's right there.
I would love to show up to one of those things with that Fisher Price, and it had the grooves in it.
Yes, it did.
And the records had the little grooves in it too that you'd put the hard needle in, and it would play all that.
Yep.
I would pay $1,200 for that. Mary, if you go on eBay, there's a ton of record albums you can get. Some actually really cool ones. I just happen to have been looking recently. Answered some questions out of the chat room. Was Sacco deported? A lot of people are really trying to elaborate on the fact that Sacco hasn't been voiced the last couple weeks. He's been quiet.
He has been quiet, and we can't really get into it.
We can't.
We do have Fifth Amendment protections, and I think I'd like to exercise that right now.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to go with the truth, but that's fine. Listen.
Look, the truth does not set you free. Don't believe that line, Sean.
We appreciate everybody who's in the chat room tonight with us. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening on Spreaker or on Live 365, go ahead over at shrmedia.com. And you can jump in the live chat and join the conversation. A lot of people in there right now chatting. So glad to have you. So Freedom Fest is coming up. We're really excited about that. We're not going to release the details yet.
It'll be in Vegas.
It'll be in Vegas. We will be there. If you're into corporate sponsorship, email me at sean@shrmedia.com. Other than that, we're not going to release too much more information yet. We're really excited. It's going to be an SHR field trip. Sacco will be coming. The cage will be brought, and he will.
Mostly because we already have him rented out at clubs to dance in that cage.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot taller than most people think.
It really is.
And we build it the Bigfoot dance show.
Right.
Very hairy. I mean, it really, if you
Right,
just,
and at cosplay events, we actually take him as Chewbacca.
yeah, absolutely. Just the part where he's got the collar around his neck and the chain. And for $50-$60, people walk up to us, we hand the chain off, and it's, hey, whatever happens for an hour happens. So,
Right.
We're pretty excited about that. We're working out the logistics. I vote for having Liz to come down and just pick us up and drive us, and that way we can start drinking early.
Right, and by early, like, we mean when we wake up.
May.
Right, right, when we wake up.
I'm also extremely excited because this Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 1 on the East Coast, Liz Loris is starting her radio adventure, and she is going to be outstanding. We will be carrying her show live as well as on
I'm very excited.
Our good friends over at Pundit Press, Dan and the team. If you don't read and check out Pundit Press, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You need to go over there and check it out. Some of the freshest and best news articles that are there. There's some great shows on Pundit Press Radio. You need to check that out. But this Friday, 4 p.m., tune in here at shrmedia.com for the Liz Loris show, Soldier Talk Radio, and we're very excited about it. We know she's going to be absolutely outstanding. Sacco, when you have a second, people think you've been deported in the chat room, and I don't want you to say anything else.
Mostly because you can't.
But what I want you to do is just say hello. Can you do that at some point? Yeah, okay. So we're wheeling the cage over to the microphone.
Hi, guys.
Okay, see?
There we go.
Thank you.
That was a perfect voiceover, by the way. You have that recording
I hit that button.
perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you did it really well.
So this Friday, again, make sure you check out Liz Loris on Soldier Talk Radio, 4 p.m. Pacific, 1 on the East, here on the
See,
SHR
Ken knew that was
Media.
tape. Ken knew that was tape. I told you. I told you we couldn't pull that one off.
All right. I'm just, you know what? When we go to break, I'm just going to tweet out a picture of Sacco so everyone knows he's in one piece.
Why don't you just tweet out a picture of all three of us? We'll do like a selfie with duck faces. It'll be great.
No, I don't like to do that because your nose makes it really hard to get everyone else.
No,
in the
it's
picture.
because you can't lift the thing over your belly. It makes it
Dude,
difficult.
I rested on there.
Why do we always argue about this?
Sacco, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're so glad to have you with us. So, hey,
Sacco, are you hungover? You're like shielding your eyes from the light, and it's not even that bright in here.
I was trying to tell Sean I don't have my makeup on, and he's trying to take a photo of me. So.
Too late. I already got it.
And folks, there you go. That's confirmation from Sacco himself that he, in fact, does wear makeup.
You guys have this skit down pretty well.
We didn't practice it before the show or anything. Eggs in the chat room. He says that I should tweet out the pic or that of Chewbacca and say it's Sacco. Nobody will
know the difference.
It's height.
Yeah.
It comes down to height.
But he's sitting down, so you really couldn't tell. I mean, I'm afraid to get sued by Disney over them thinking that we're stealing some kind of Star Wars thing if we actually tweeted a picture of Sacco. But when he's sitting down, he looks more like an Ewok, I guess.
Yum, yum. Anyhow. So Ken's suggesting that if we do carpool with Liz, that we'll have to share her heels.
You look great.
I don't like to share my heels. I think we've said that before.
Right.
And by the way, if you go to our Twitter at Sackheads, you can see the picture of Sacco working hard in studio.
I go
as
heels.
We speak. I don't at all like to share my heels. And here's why. I have to have them custom fit because I have fat feet. And you can't squeeze those into a regular set of heels. So I would love to share heels with Liz, but I'm sure she's a little bit more dainty than I am. Just slightly, perhaps.
Perhaps.
So I don't.
Maybe they were talking about sharing heels with Sacco because he did just admit to wearing makeup.
Or was it a firearm statement?
Well, I just said I go heels.
Right.
Right.
So maybe we'll all go heels in Vegas.
And I'm pretty sure Liz goes heels.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too.
Which is awesome.
Oh man. So. You know,
what?
When you get to a certain age in life, you have to be careful with exercise equipment, right?
Look, you do, but here's the thing. What type of exercise equipment? Because that was never specified.
Some sort of swing.
Is a swing exercise equipment?
Right.
Certain types of swings that are used indoors, are those exercise equipment?
I don't know.
We don't know what type of exercise equipment is being referred to.
Well, either way.
And we do know the Latin root word for his name.
Jalapeno, correct.
Right.
Harry Reid, the former Senate Majority Leader now,
Right.
broke a number of ribs and bones in his face.
So they say. How's he get ribs in
the
his
face? Right. This was a poorly written article, and I'm getting
poorly...
it from the New York Daily News.
Well, there you go.
Well, on a workout, it looked like on January 2nd.
But it doesn't say what type of workout.
In his Nevada home. He was really...
See?
Yeah.
See? It's in his home.
Right.
Look, I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
A piece of equipment Senator Reid was using to
Very
exercise
vague.
broke,
Very
causing
vague.
him to fall and break a number of blah, 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 blah.
Now,
Go to the statement
hang
from
on
the
a second.
office.
It says exercise equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Does this exercise equipment take batteries?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Right?
Right?
Maybe it's plugged in.
Does the right?
A jackhammer could run it.
Does it take gasoline?
It could. It could be gas powered. We don't know.
We don't know what type of
Right?
exercise and
If
quote
you look at
unquote
CrossFit,
equipment.
they use all sorts of crazy equipment.
They
now.
do, yeah.
So there's a number of ways that the senator could have harmed himself with exercise equipment.
Right.
You know, and it's staggering to me that
And he does live near Vegas, right?
he does.
Look, I'm painting a picture.
Mary's in the chat room. She thinks that there's a little bit of the Clinton-esque going on here. She thinks that maybe his wife did it.
See, and that falls right in line with kind of where we're going.
And Ken's
what type
saying,
of equipment?
Yes. Or the hooker, as Ag said. It was either her or the hooker. I can't confirm either.
We don't know.
I don't
we
know.
can't confirm or deny. This
Ken,
is just...
Ken in the chat room does nail it. He says that if the WNBA will do domestic violence public service announcements if, in fact, it was his wife that did it. So it's under investigation, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know.
Because it's possible elder
that.
abuse. He's 75 years of age. He's 75 years old. And usually if somebody
He's abused the public.
If hospital and children...
Is somebody playing Qbert right now?
If an elderly person or an infant goes to the hospital with that much damage done, usually there's an investigation. The police get called, potential elder abuse, etc. So maybe there'll be an investigation done. But, you know, we were looking for a title of this story, and you absolutely nailed it. And you said, you know, Harry Reid misses new class with doctor's note.
Well, yeah, right, because he did miss the incoming class.
Right.
And he did have a doctor's note. It was on order of his doctor, as I understand. So I guess when you're 70-something years old, you can still get out with a note, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe he was just all boo-boo faced because he lost his his leadership.
Oh, I wonder if he was like, maybe he was on like a treadmill crying about it, like sobbing.
I don't think it was that type of equipment.
Okay. I'm going to go with treadmill because it's easier to talk about.
Okay.
And maybe he slipped in his own tears.
That's a possibility.
Just suggestion. Either way, all joking aside, I do wish him well. I hope he has a speedy recovery because as much as I disagree with his politics, it doesn't mean I want anything bad to happen.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to agree with that. We give him a hard time because he's such a douchebag.
Right. I hate him politically.
But we don't wish ill will upon anybody, particularly
an elected official.
Right.
But it's just kind of a weird story. I still think
and with
more...
it being so vague,
yes.
Right? If that was me, I'd be like, hey, write in there that it was a barbell.
Yeah.
It was something. Don't just say a piece of equipment. Don't leave it open to interpretation because
right.
there are smartasses out there that will take advantage
like
of that.
Us
that will completely just run with that story and take it a million different directions.
And believe me, what you're hearing on the air is much nicer than what we probably said off the air as far as what we suggested could have happened.
But it was not as funny.
No, not nearly as funny.
What we said off air was even funnier.
Well, yeah. Are you kidding me? It's absolutely hysterical. I want to know if everyone's looked at the picture of Sacco. It's on Twitter at Sackheads. I want to see if people notice a few things in that picture. It would be interesting to see.
Did you put that one thing in?
I just want people to look. I'm not even going to suggest it. I just want people to look because there's definitely there's definitely a couple things in there that really kind of shows the status that we have to keep for Sacco around the studio to keep him under control.
Right, because there are things we have stationed nearby in order to control
Absolutely.
said Wookiee.
There's a big movement right now on Facebook and Twitter that I'm going to talk to you about when we come back from the break.
To free Sacco?
To free Sacco. There's a huge movement for free Sacco.
Talk about it now.
It has to do with the next segment. And I get in trouble if I even mention it.
You do get in trouble.
If I even mention it, I get in trouble.
You get in a lot of trouble.
So I'm not going to say anything.
Did you see California broke ground on the high-speed rail?
The train to nowhere?
Right. The train that goes from, like, Fresno to South Fresno?
Yeah. Who wants to go to Fresno?
In 1 second?
Fresno to Bakersfield. Well, there's a trip I want to make.
Right.
Folks, if you've ever been to either place, you never want to go back and spend time, never mind spend hundreds of dollars to ride between the two places. Neither one of them is known for their luxurious, beautiful scenery.
Onions. One's known for onions.
Onions, garlic, and feet, I think, is like the third one. Smells like feet.
But not necessarily in that order. Maybe feet first.
And Jerry Brown, when he spoke, Governor Brown, essentially said that, you know, for those who were with us and didn't realize, for those who were against this, and, you know, by the time you would have come around and realized this is important, it would have been too late. And, you know, you don't want to be not behind this. And we have the money to do it. How do we have the money to do it? I'll tell you how. No, they raised the gas tax in California.
Look, it's only 13 years behind schedule.
That sounds right for the state.
Yeah.
Tommy Chung, nobody wants to go to Fresno, man.
Look, it doesn't cost much.
No.
It's only $4 million per day.
Estimated completion date, 2022, I believe?
2033.
2033.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. You keep talking. I'm going to do some really quick math.
Okay,
how much
go.
a day? 4 million?
4 million per day. So times that by 365.
Hold on.
Go ahead, get the calculator
you keep going.
out.
I'm going to give
get
you
the scientific calculator out because you're going to have to do some whiz-bang stuff.
I'm going to need the
this
slide
in,
rule.
right.
People are going to beat me to it, and the answer's going to be in
Right.
the chat room.
The promise was $10 billion in 2008 when this passed. So let's see how close to $10 billion we would be at. 4 million per day times 365, 2033.
Oh,
Nail it.
2033.
Yeah, 2033.
Oh.
Not 2133. That'd be ridiculous. that would just be absurd.
So that's 6,570 days, roughly.
Okay.
Times 4 million.
Right. Like 98 billion? Is that what you get, ish? I just did that in my head. It's not a big deal.
$26,280,000,000.
Well, that's a little bit higher than $10 billion in bonds that were approved, and then $33 billion price tag the voters were told it was going to talk.
Just more jackass.
There's some folks actually saying it's going to be as high as $98 billion.
I believe that. Listen, I can remember, and the track was already in place, and they just had to make some slight adjustments. The Acela track between Boston, New York, and D.C. And all they had to do was upgrade it, and the price tag was ridiculous.
Well, it gets better. Ridership was originally estimated to be 90 million per year. They're now saying it's probably closer to 30 million.
Well, you know, it's really not a lot of people want to get on it. Need to address the chat room as far as the Twitter pic at Sackheads. What is Sacco doing with his hand? I had to get rid of the finger that he had stuck up on that. That's what he was doing. Mary brought up a great point during the bullet train ride or the super train or whatever they want to call it. What happens if they get hit with the decent earthquake? That thing's going 110 miles an hour, I think is what it's projected to go. Something like that.
Which means it'll go 20.
Right. So I'll give him 60.
Okay. We'll split the difference a
Full
little
train
bit.
of 8-10 cars
Uh-huh.
gets rocked off the tracks doing 110 miles an hour into a small city.
Right.
Not saying the railroad is down and that we shouldn't use the railroad anymore and that it's that outdated. I like riding the train. I actually like riding the train long distances.
Yeah,
I
but here's the
enjoy
thing. But that's the one that's out in front of the supermarket that you put a quarter in.
Choo choo.
That's the and you do. You wear your little engineer's hat.
Clint, look, I'm an engineer. Choo choo.
I know, Sean. Take the sunglasses off. Please.
And 2 minutes ago, you were a cowboy on top of the horsey. So
Right,
great.
and then you were a buzzboy in the airplane. So
Look, I'm a buzzboy.
Daffy Duck.
Essentially, yeah, Egg nailed it. If there is a mighty earthquake, the bullet train would turn into a giant bullet,
Right.
and careening into a small town.
Fortunately, between Fresno and Bakersfield, it's not going to hit much.
The onion industry will be destroyed.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why this was a big push. And this is Democrats for you, folks. This is one of those things where we're going to accomplish something, even if it's not what's actually needed, which is what I think this was. I think that they felt like they needed to hang their hat on something in California. And I'll tell you what, I think it was something that the California Democrats were starting to feel that people were starting to turn more conservative, and we saw there was more conservative voting this last time around in California than there had been for a while. And I think they saw that a couple
Which is
years
why we
ago.
actually got Jerry Brown instead of Neil Kashkari.
Right. But I think Democrats, what did they propose this 8 years ago?
2008, I think.
Yeah. I think they know slowly that even California, they needed to do something to rally their base. Sadly, spending all this money on a train nowhere rallies their base.
Look, the good news is service is supposed to start in 2018.
Oh,
But
good,
it's
I'll
going
be
to go
dead.
from Bakersfield to Merced.
Bakersfield to Merced. There's two places I've never wanted to get on a
Look,
train.
there's a lot of traffic, people commuting between those places for work.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know of anybody.
I'm going to go to work. Where do you work? Merced. We are in Merced. Yeah, but I want to take this down and bring it back just so I feel like I'm using
Right,
it.
just so I commute.
No way. 90 in the chat room. A newer chatter for us says that it's a lot like the train that was in Canada, which I believe was Quebec, that wiped out 90% of that town. I don't know what kind of fuel they use for these. I'm assuming it's like a high-end diesel fuel. But the simple fact
It's
is
fusion.
It's fusion. It's cold fusion. At least that's what the Democrats are telling everyone.
It's fusion.
I think it's funny that they want to spend, how much money did we say it was? $26 billion on something that uses diesel fuel.
Fusion.
No, it uses diesel. The Acela train, it's going to be the same as the Acela train. It's diesel operated. So the party that loves to claim global warming, environmental friendliness, blah, 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 is literally building a $26 billion set of train tracks to nowhere that do nothing whatsoever.
That's not true. But Merced to Bakersfield.
All right,
Are
from
you not
Merced-
listening?
And then turn around and run it with a diesel engine and essentially slap to the face of the environmentalists who could drive that in their Prius in about an hour. I just cannot believe that they will be in that much in their face about it, and people are still, whoa, thank God. Thank God we're going to have this train to friggin' Merced.
Right.
Merced, folks. Don't bother looking it up on a map because it doesn't exist there. You could barely see it. There's
Right.
not a lot going on there.
There's a few houses.
Right. I know the ultimate goal is to have it connect from San Francisco all the way down to L.A.
That's going to work out great because people commute to San Francisco from L.A.
Well, and it's even worse, and the problem they had is just after the Acela train in Massachusetts, and I keep going back to this because we have this type of system.
Because you're bragging.
Once,
Just say that.
Once they had it set up, all these little shuttle service airlines started popping up, and you could fly New York to Boston for $52. It cost you $95 on the Acela train. So if you're like me and you're not a big fan of flying, is it worth the extra $40 each way? No, because you're in the air for 35 minutes. It's 35 minutes of sheer terror, and I pee myself twice, but
that's just because you've been drinking a lot.
I'm also cheap, and that's $80 that I could spend on beer. Worst idea that's hit California in a long time, the bullet train to absolutely friggin' nowhere. Folks, we're up against a break. I beat Sacco to the squeaky door. When we come back, we're going to get into the Terror Block segment. We're going to update you on everything that happened in Paris and cover everything front to back. If you have a chance before we go, No, I'll cover it on the other side of the break. See you in a few here on the SHR Media Network. This is the Sack Kids Radio Show.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
If our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Coming up tonight in this segment, we're going to discuss Terror Bloc, or as I like to call it,
Terror Bloc.
Coming to America.
That's a movie. You can't do that.
It's such a great movie.
It was a great movie.
It was a great movie. Either way, tragedy in Paris today, and Clint's going to catch us up to speed on all the breaking news and what's happening on that and go from there.
Why would you tell me there's breaking news? We already broke the breaking news.
I know, but it's part.
This is just our segment now. You can't do that. Now everybody's hyped up for breaking news, and you already broke the breaking news.
Not everyone was in the chat room when we broke the news.
The 18-year-old turned himself in. See, they're breaking news.
And that's weird to me as well, but go ahead.
That he turned himself in?
Yes.
Yeah. Sacco said why.
Total martyr syndrome. He's going to be a hero. He turned himself in to his people.
Martyr, though, right?
Well, in a way, though, because
listen, we can't talk about this yet.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not breaking news anymore. It broke already, like my heart, in a million pieces. And in Vegas.
In Vegas.
On today's date, Wednesday, January 7th, about 11:30 in the morning, some terrorists went into Charlie Hebdo publications, a satire publication in Paris, in France. They published, if you remember, the cartoon caricature of Muhammad, caused a lot of outcry and so forth. But they went in, they were wearing all dark clothing, balaclavas, so the masks all the way down to their feet. They had full gear on. They had AK-style weapons.
Think of the stock footage from every Middle East training film that they show on news for like what they're training, and that's exactly what they were wearing.
Yeah, they had looked like they had some kind of tactical vest on, or rigging like an H harness or something like that on with additional gear. They entered the ground floor and opened fired. They then went up to the first floor of the building. An employee let them in after being ordered to do so at gunpoint. As the terrorists encountered individuals inside the facility, they asked them their names. So clearly they had a target list. They opened fired, killed folks inside it in the newsroom. They then left, got inside of a getaway vehicle. There were 3 terrorists total. After the attack, when they get in the car to escape, they encountered law enforcement. Police was responding to the scene. According to a witness statement, there were police responding on bicycles, and one of the officers turned around and rode away, according to the witness statement, because the bad guys had guns.
Right, and this officer...
I don't know if this officer didn't have a weapon. I'm assuming that maybe this officer didn't have a weapon, because I would hope that if this officer did have a weapon, they would have engaged. But the officer rode away. Coordinated attack. At one point, you see a vehicle coming in, and the terrorists are outside of the vehicle, triangulated from the car on the responding vehicles. As they're going away, they encounter a police officer on foot. They get out of the vehicle. They shoot the officer. The officer goes down, puts his hands up as he's rolling over. The terrorists move up on him. Again, tactically sound, triangulated on him. Boom, shoot the officer once in the head, put him down, and then go back in the vehicle and make their escape. They then make their escape. They get into another vehicle where they carjack an individual, and there's a report that they were actually polite to the individual they carjacked. The person even said, "Can I have my dog?" And the terrorist handed him his dog and then thanked him.
Right.
And then drove away, which was bizarre. There were 12 killed in this attack. There is reports they were shouting Allah Akbar, which is praise to God. And one of the terrorists reportedly told a member of the media that it was Al-Qaeda out of Yemen, that they were affiliated with Al-Qaeda in Yemen, that is responsible for the attack. The French president immediately called the attack terrorism, and obviously it's terrorism. They identified 3 suspects. Saeed.
You mean it wasn't workplace violence?
Well, it's happened in France. So,
right.
Yeah, if it happened here, who knows what our president would have said. But 3 terrorists were identified. Saeed Kawachi, Kuchi, I don't know, however you pronounce his name. 34 years old. His brother, Sharif, not the jewelers.
Not the jewelers, right.
But Sharif Kawachi, 32 years
Saeed,
old.
I believe.
Yeah, that's what I said. Saeed. But Sharif was the brother, and he actually has a prior conviction for terrorism in 2008, May of 2008. He was tried and convicted of terror-related charges in France. He was part of the jihadi network that was funneling fighters into Iraq through some countries. Was sought, and I've seen reports that he was sentenced to 18 months. I've seen reports like through ABC News that he was sentenced to 3 years. So I don't know which is accurate, but he was sentenced somewhere from 18 months to 3 years in prison. Assume he served his term, but 3 years at the most, right, on a terror charge. So he'll be fine.
Right.
I'm sure he'll learn his lesson.
What's going to happen? I mean, really,
nothing. During his trial, he said that he was motivated by TV reports of inmates being humiliated at Abu Ghraib prison.
Mm-hmm.
So that works. The 18-year-old was Hamid Morad. And I don't know.
Moron?
Did you say moron?
Yeah, I think it's moron.
It's possible.
Right.
It's possible. So those are the players. Now, the 18-year-old Morad turned himself in reportedly, and that was the breaking news from tonight. Law enforcement responded, and look, we assume they were unarmed officers because we have reports that they were treated because
they had no
that
weapons.
guy had a gun. Law enforcement was executed, so as they were responding in, they came under fire. It was a coordinated attack.
I think that was an armed officer who got shot Went to the ground.
Put his
for
hands
his
up,
life.
and was executed. And clearly, law enforcement's response, in my opinion, they seem to be unprepared for this type of coordinated small unit tactic attack.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
In this. And in the chat room it said Abu Ghraib was years ago. And, yeah, this terror trial took place in 2008. And it was at that trial that he said he was motivated by Abu Ghraib.
So the actions took place in 2006, so that's even further away. I think Abu Ghraib was 2006, 2005.
Right. Yeah, which makes this so it is trial in 2008. Right?
Right.
Okay, stop trying to confuse my timeline, Sean.
Sorry.
You're throwing me off my game here, man. This is not – I'm not okay with this. You look at France's policies on terrorism, and there's a good report out that's on the transnational. It's from the Transnational Terrorism Security and Rule of Law. The case study they did a case study on France, and they talk about their past policies, and they study it from a legal standpoint for some of their policies. But there are a couple of good articles out there also about France's policies in the past, and one of them you could also find through on the New York Post. But you look at France's policies like 1980s and a little bit into the 90s, and they really had a policy of appeasement, where they had almost a sanctuary doctrine. And their sanctuary doctrine was post-1945, so post-World War II. And their idea at the time was that France would best be able to shield itself if it entered into an agreement with them, basically offering their country up as a safe haven in exchange for immunity from the attacks. Again, this is outlined in this transnational terrorism study as well. And in the 90s, that started to change as some of these terrorist groups splintered. They changed focus, and they started conducting strikes in France. Since that time, France has paid ransom for hostage releases, over $58 million since 2008, which is the most from any other country in the world paying for ransom. And
some of it was some of the massive ships off the coast of Mogadishu in Somalia, as far as some of the ransom that they've paid, but just because those were terrorist attacks too. Essentially, they're
right, and for hostages,
right, et cetera, et cetera.
And you look at how France has kind of behaved even recently. Didn't they just vote in the UN Security Council to recognize the Palestinian Authority without a peace agreement?
Yes.
With Israel?
Yes.
And in 96, they refused to put Hamas and Hezbollah on the terror watch list, which prevented a G7 agreement with like certain 40-some-odd different resolutions in order to combat global terrorism. So France has that. Now, they do have some policies in place in terms of being able to fight terrorism, but they haven't necessarily been the leader in anti-Islamic terrorism.
No, and they've had some laws. I think they passed the No Burqa law not too long ago. They've done some things, but they haven't exactly been on the forefront of standing up against Islamist extremists.
Right. I mean, they have a huge Muslim population there, and
enormous. Ton of Algerians.
They do, and I understand that you know they have to take care of their population, and those are still French citizens. By the same token, I don't necessarily think it's a smart policy to pay $58 million in ransom for anything, or to provide a safe haven, even in the 80s and so forth, for anything. Wasn't it the 70s where France used to provide regular contributions to Palestinian groups because there were a huge number of hijackings at the time? And I know you had that Air France hijacking in like 78, 79, and Israel ended up having to take action. Hey, France, way to pay back Israel by voting for recognizing the Palestinian Authority. Good job there, folks.
Saved your rear end there.
Yeah, that was great.
And the Palestinians did a lot of the hijacking in the 70s. They were the big Lufthansa one. That was another big one. I mean, they did, I think, a majority of the hijackings in the 70s, and yet they're still paying money.
So why is this important to us? Look, other than the fact that our thoughts and prayers go out to the French people and the families of those who were killed, here's why it's important. We have said on this show that this type of tactic is coming.
More and more.
We have said on this show, prior to this attack.
Oh, yeah.
We have said on this show, and we've talked about it in terms of active shooter attacks, and hey, there's a trend out there where we could see active terrorist attacks where they are using small unit tactics in active shooter events, much like they did in Mumbai.
Yes.
At the beginning of that standoff, that 3-day siege that developed began as an active shooter attack, and we could see this type of active terrorist attacks being used, particularly with these lone wolf cells that are out there and that are being called to action. And folks, if this happened in France, people think that it can't happen here, and here's why it's important to us here in the United States. We just outlined France's policies, general weak policies on terrorism. And look, they started getting hit in the 80s and 90s there, and we covered that a little bit. But look at Obama's policies.
Mm-hmm.
Obama does not have a strong policy against terrorism. You just had just a couple weeks ago, David Vitter, the U.S. Senator, sent a letter. He's from Louisiana. Sent a letter to Barack Obama, President Obama, basically saying, "Hey, some of your weak actions are putting us more at risk." And the things he cited was the transfer of 5 high-threat Taliban terrorists, so-called the Taliban Dream Team, out of Guantanamo Bay in exchange for a U.S. soldier that was detained by the enemy. These people were deemed previously to be high risk, and a senior Taliban official who served in multiple leadership roles, which is by his own administration's intelligence estimates. And here we're releasing these people. Last week we just released another 5 detainees from Guantanamo Bay. We transferred them, sorry, but I'm sure it'll be fine. The senator cited the freeing of the Cuban 5. This president has handled the Iraq insurgency poorly. You can't defeat ISIS simply by being in the air. So he has a very weak stance towards terrorism as well. And we just outlined what weaker policies and appeasement policies have done for France. Well, what is the situation we're being left in now here at home? And now let's look at who is going to be the first ones to respond to that type of scene. It's going to be law enforcement,
right?
Just like it was in France. And what is the atmosphere here in our country?
Anti-law enforcement,
related
everything.
to law enforcement.
There's
a big anti-law enforcement push, and even for those people that support law, look, there's a push to disarm law enforcement here in America.
In some places, yeah.
In some places. And look, we see how good that was in France, right? That, oh, shit. And he turned away.
Yeah.
Not a time you want your cops to turn away. Right?
And I don't blame them.
And here's the other part where you have and we've talked about it previously here on this show, this attack was not a surprise to me.
Not at all.
At all. And again, because we've talked about it, and we talked about this type of attack going to happen, being more and more prevalent. But here in America, even among conservatives, even among people that believe police are there to do the right thing and are typically good people, there is this push, and it started from the left, I believe, to where there's this new term about demilitarizing the police.
Mm-hmm.
And look, the United States military and American law enforcement has 2 different, distinct roles.
Yes.
And those roles should not be blurred unless there is an invasion of our homeland and we need law enforcement to act as another force to repel that foreign invasion.
Right.
Okay? However,
some could argue that
if you're talking about, and I know there's a big outcry on the right and left against law enforcement having armor.
Mm-hmm.
Armor is defensive. Armor is not offensive. It is defensive in nature. I know there's an outcry against our officers having AR-15 style weapons. Here's the thing. If you're responding to active terrorists in American streets in an American city and they have AK style weapons, an officer's pistol is not going to do any good.
The range is different.
That officer.
Different,
now, look, I'm all
for
having tight controls. You can restrict. Hey, you know what? Officers have these tools, but you can use them under these circumstances.
Well,
you have to have some gray area and flexibility, and I get that, and that's fine. But it is foolish in this country to even have the debate about, well, why do officers need AR-15 style rifles? We're in a police state. Why do they need armor? That's not the case, and here's why. We need to be able to have officers to respond to this type of threat. Because officers, because they're going to be the first ones to save your ass if these terrorists are coming for you, or for anybody you love, the officers also have to be well-trained and well-versed in small unit tactics to be able to outmaneuver and to fight this type of threat.
Well, and this is there's two arguments, and Ken just beat me to one point. Every American citizen should be required to pack heat.
And we've said that as well.
I've
absolutely.
said that time and again.
It is absolutely
if France has
a
pretty high
national
gun
security
control,
issue.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
they have extremely tight gun control.
Yes, they do. Proper gun control is sight alignment and trigger pull.
Exactly. If this happened in a place where they didn't, perhaps inside the building, there would have been more resistance. You look at Canada. Canada, during that attack that they had recently, again, law enforcement was the first responders, even though they were, quote-unquote, federal law enforcement in Canada because it was a sergeant-at-arms, etc. It was met with immediate resistance, and it was a minimal loss of life. It could have been a maximum amount of life, but they met right away, and he was demised. But I look at Boston, and Boston's a prime example. Boston was pushing, the Boston Police Department was pushing to have rifles in every officer's car. They would be trained, etc., blah, 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 and have extensive training before they could carry it, but they were looking to have rifles in the cars. The city of Boston, we talked about this on the show, you had city officials saying, oh, the police state, and what does it look like if these officers are getting out of the car with the military-style weapons? I hate that statement. And what does that say to the kids? And, oh, this is so bad, and if something goes that bad, that's why we have a SWAT team and they can react. People who have zero understanding of how it is. But I look at the Boston Marathon bombing. Hundreds of thousands of people in a small area. What if, instead of kettle bombs, or on top of kettle bombs, which we knew they had firearms because a couple days later there was the massive shootout in Watertown. What if that shootout took place with all of those kids around, all those people around? What if, when those bombs went off, those two brothers unloaded with AK-47 rifles into the crowd against law enforcement right there and then?
Well, we look at the apprehension phase of that. They did have guns
that were
capable of rapid fire.
Yes.
And
the Watertown shootout. Yeah.
Right.
But if they decided to go active shooter after the bombs detonated, if you look at how they set it up, I almost wonder if it wasn't part of a plan, because they bombed two ends of the crowd where the crowd was the thickest, forcing people towards the middle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if maybe they got scared or whatever, but if all of a sudden those 2 or 3 or 4 other guys are there with an AK-47 style rifle, the police on the ground with their pistols are at a serious disadvantage. Plus, you start worrying about accuracy with that many people around, and because we've seen it before, one cop's bullet misses and hits an innocent person while he's trying to take out the bad guy, and the lawsuits begin. Because that's where we are in this country.
Yeah, you're right. But I want to deal with specifically with law enforcement equipment.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
And you look at let's look at the basic patrol officer.
But that's what I'm saying is those officers in Boston were denied rifles before and after the Boston Marathon attack,
which is ridiculous.
Right.
But I also want to talk about their loadout. Right. So their standard body armor does not stop a rifle round.
Nope.
That's no secret. Okay. Their standard body armor is not going to stop that type of rifle round. Yet if you wear the type of armor that's required to stop that type of round,
military state.
It's a military state.
Police state.
You look like. So look, I'm for equipping the officers with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know what? You don't roll around with a tack vest on and your plate armor on and all your extra magazines on when you're making a traffic stop, right?
Right.
That's a little. However, if you're getting called or you're responding to or you hear an active terrorist event or an active shooter event, guess what? You are in a tactical response role.
Right.
You have your vest in your car, throw it on.
Yep.
You bring your rifle to the gunfight, and you roll in.
Yeah.
Right? Now, so I understand the need. Look, we don't want our law enforcement officers. We don't.
Ken says if it's in Newark, they should be doing traffic stops with all that equipment on.
Right.
Well, okay.
Right.
I'll
give you that. But typically in America, we don't want our officers rolling around or making traffic stops or just regular contacts with the citizenry in full tack gear, right? I don't care if they do either, but overall, I can understand that point of view, okay?
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a time and a place, and officers have to be equipped. And I think this incident in France, and we know it can happen very easily here at home.
It's going to, if you ask me.
It absolutely is, yeah. And we're set up for it. We're primed for it. I think that is a grave mistake, and we need to be very careful with where we're going and where our relationship is with our law enforcement. And we really need to keep all of this in mind.
I agree. I listen. We've said it on this show. Other people have said it, but I like to think that we're the best at it. These style attacks are coming here, and you look down the list of attacks that come to mind over the last few years. I'm just going to read them off real quick. Obviously, France, Nairobi, Fort Hood, the Seattle and New Jersey connection.
Fort Hood number 1, you're talking?
Yep, Fort Hood number 1. Oklahoma, Boston. Even the shoe bombers, England with the bombings. England, there was an attack on the airport in Scotland with fire bombs, a couple other ones that people forget. Spain. We've said before, we said again, Mumbai is setting up all these style attacks. There's a good chance the Boston Marathon bombers were planning a Mumbai-style attack, and they got freaked out, but they were still planning it. It is coming, and it's already been here on some level. Nairobi's a big one, because Nairobi... Again, law enforcement responded. Local law enforcement was the original responders. But you had, what was there, 8, 10, I believe, militants that attacked a large mall. We've been warned in this country about malls as humongous soft targets, theaters, etc. These are all potentially dry runs for attacks that can happen here.
They've said outright they want to accomplish this stuff here in the United States.
What if this 3-man fire team was the assault that happened in Canada versus the one guy with the gun? Well, the 2 guys with the guns. I forget what it was. What if that had happened where they made their way in and they started taking out the Canadian Parliament? All those officers inside, yeah, but there's a chance these guys were well trained.
Yes,
and
that's my
chance.
point. That's my point. Is the typical patrol officer trained in small unit tactics to be able to maneuver with this type of unit? And they are not.
Right.
Most patrol level officers are not, nor are they equipped. And you have cities like Davis, California, that had an armored vehicle that was given to them by the federal government, the surplus programs that didn't even cost the local taxpayers anything, and they gave it back because of public perception.
Because people, that makes me feel icky.
It looks mean.
You know what's funny is, and I think
I'm sorry, it looks mean.
If somebody gives me a Prius or an MRAP, as that vehicle is known as, I'm taking the MRAP. If the U.S. government, listen, I have my problem with the feds right now, and I'll be the first one to admit it. But if they call me tomorrow and said, "Hey, we'll sell you an MRAP for $1,"
yeah, sold.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take 2. I happen to have a $2 bill that I'll give to you. It's shiny and new. You'll like it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, they might not like it because it's Jefferson on the front.
Oh, that's true. You may like it, but most likely you won't. But, we have to get over it. And, again, it comes down to emotion. We talk about this when we talk about the
I think it comes down to ignorance.
Well, no, I think it's emotion. Carver and Brown, we talk about the arguments going on there. The NYPD officers, all the anti-NYPD segment or police sentiment that's going on. It comes down to emotional. We're not having the literal argument that we need to have. People are emotionally appeasing emotional responses.
They are, but there's also the movement on the right that doesn't like it. It's militaristic.
Right.
Well,
it's double-sided.
It is, and that's the problem. Because if you have people on both sides agreeing on an issue, even though it's for two completely different reasons, now you can castrate law enforcement and severely impair their ability to respond to an issue like this. It's like the poor people that live in Davis. If something happens there, and I know it won't because it's a nuclear-free zone, thank goodness, so nothing bad would ever happen there. If something bad happens in Davis, guess what? Their law enforcement does not have the means to be able to pull people out and use that armored vehicle as an ambulance to roll people out or to do whatever
no, they're
it is
gonna
they
wait.
need to
They
do.
have to wait for the next available one.
Yeah.
And, it's funny, and this always shocks me with Davis because UC Davis, and, it's close by. I know it's there. UC Davis has some real controversial equipment or funding in studies that go on there. There's a whole ape and orangutan thing there that has been targeted by ELF and ELF a few times.
And look, here's the other side of this also. If local law enforcement does not have those resources and capability to deal with these types of threats or training or equipment, guess who will come in and do it? Your federal government.
And now
your
you want to
federal
talk about a
government,
police state.
and you want to talk about a police state and a national police force? You think Homeland Security is not already set up for it? They already have Viper teams out. They say in their mission statement that their jurisdiction is any form of transportation. Guess what? Your Nikes, your Pumas, your high heel shoes, whatever you got,
no shoes,
is a form of transportation.
Mrs. Robb is in the chat room. She brings up a great point. Davis is also the city that not allowed to pepper spray protesters. So, I mean, that just kind of sums up the city of Davis.
Right.
They've also cited a person for snoring. So,
but if the locals can't deal with it, the feds get to come in and save the day. So, hey, be careful what you ask for, folks.
Because you just might get it.
We're 1 minute past a break.
When we come back, the Rhino Republicans get a giant boner once again.
Yeah, the big
will
Republican boner.
Will it last more than 4 hours? Find out on the other side here on the SHR Media
Tale of a
Network.
crashed AirAsia jet has been found upturned on the seabed about 30 kilometers from the plane's last known location. I'm Corey Evan with this SHR News Brief. This according to Indonesia's Search and Rescue Agency today, indicating the crucial black box recorders may be nearby. Flight 8501 vanished from radar screens over the North Java Sea on December 28th, less than halfway into a 2-hour flight from Indonesia's second biggest city of Surabaya to Singapore. There were no survivors among the 162 people on board. The tail was identified by divers after it was spotted by an underwater machine using a sonar scan. This according to Bambang Solistio, head of the Search and Rescue Agency. Indonesia's Minister for Maritime Affairs, Indroyono Susilo, told the news conference, quote, with the finding of the tail, 6 search and rescue ships are already at the location to search within a radius of 2 nautical miles. German insurer Allianz said it had begun making initial payments to the families of crash victims, and even though it declined to specify the amount, initial payments have run at around $25,000 for the next of kin of each passenger, according to industry sources. Amid national discord about police conduct and race relations, a South Carolina jury heard opening statements today in the murder trial of a former police chief who was accused of killing an unarmed man in 2011. This according to the New York Times. Richard J. Combs, the police chief in Utahville at the time of the episode, was indicted on the murder charge in early December, shortly before he was to stand trial for official misconduct in connection with the death of Bernard Bailey, who had an outstanding warrant at the time Mr. Combs tried to arrest him. The attempted arrest turned into a fight at Mr. Bailey's truck, and a lawyer for Mr. Combs today argued that the chief fired to protect himself as the truck moved. But a prosecutor, David M. Pascoe Jr., said that Mr. Combs had been in a feud with Mr. Bailey for more than 2 months about a traffic citation Mr. Bailey's daughter received in March 2011. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Pascoe said as he gestured toward Mr. Combs, was murdered over a broken taillight, killed because of that man's poor judgment, he is quoted as saying. Mr. Pascoe condemned the shooting as an absolutely senseless act of violence connected to a trumped-up warrant. A jury of 9 women and 3 men will decide whether Mr. Combs' conduct was appropriate, a breach of police practices, or a criminal act that could lead to a life sentence. The jury includes 7 blacks and 5 whites, a racial makeup that closely resembles that of Orangeburg County, which is 62% black and 35% white, according to sources. 3 alternates, 2 black women and a white man, were also selected. A check for nearly $975 million is apparently not enough for a divorce settlement when your ex-husband is oil tycoon Harold Hamm. This according to the Huffington Post. Hamm's second wife Sue Ann Arnell rejected a check for $974,790,000 written on Monday as a settlement for their divorce, Hamm's attorneys confirmed according to CNN Money. Arnell, an economist and lawyer who previously held executive positions at Hamm's company Continental Resources, reportedly believes she is entitled to more because she helped the billionaire CEO amass his fortune. Hamm borrowed money to write the eye-popping check, according to the Oklahoman. The couple, who married in 1988 and have 2 children together, had no prenuptial agreement, and their divorce has dragged on for 2.5 years. In November, Oklahoma Special Judge Howard Harrelson ordered Hamm to pay his ex $1 billion in what was one of the largest divorce settlements in U.S. history. However, Arnell appealed the ruling in December, calling the $1 billion sum inappropriate and citing 78 alleged errors that led to her getting shortchanged. Well, you know what they say, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking up is hard to do. And finally, a little bit of odd news for you today. Meet Kirby DeLauter, a local politician who ordered the media not to use his name. Mr. DeLauter may need to rethink his strategy for keeping his name out of print. The Frederick County, Maryland councilman's name was published Tuesday in newspapers, websites, news, and opinion blogs in seemingly every corner of the internet after he threatened to sue his local newspaper if it dared publish his name without his permission. The Frederick News Post responded by posting an advanced look at its Sunday editorial on the newspaper's website. The editorial's headline, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter. A Google search for the name Kirby DeLauter on Tuesday evening turned up more than 37,000 results. Talk about egging on a politician. And you know what? I think I'll do that as I wrap up this SHR news brief. I'm Corey Evans saying Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter, Kirby DeLauter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Thanks. That's,
Thanks,
Sacco,
That
you
was
nail
awesome.
it. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that was
when
great.
we're getting our countdown and we're talking show
Hey guys,
topics.
We're live.
So
Yeah.
we're sitting here talking
we can't
topics.
Talk about the turtle and the donkey anymore.
And we're setting up
It's
our
the
next
midget.
segment and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, Sacco, who usually gives us a 30-second warning, just turns around and goes, "Oh, yeah, you're live." Hey, nothing like an ultra-professional radio show here. Thank you to our amazing producer, Sacco, for staying dialed
I gave you
every
a minute countdown. That should.
You didn't give a minute countdown, Sacco. This isn't your bedroom.
What?
Oh. So here's the amazing part is
Sacco just got that, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, Sacco just got that.
wow.
Oh my gosh. I'm done responding.
So Boner,
the big Republican boner.
the big Republican
Meaning
boner,
mistake.
meaning mistake,
Right.
From the dictionary, meaning mistake,
Right, big throbbing
boner,
meaning big
huge mistake.
Huge.
Actually had they actually had a chance,
And it's a member.
It's even funnier. Actually had the chance. The Republicans had a chance to get rid of him. And listen, after coming out of the midterms 2014, big, huge conservative push. Conservatives won. The conservative message won the election. The fact that it was a referendum on Democrats, but also on what a lot of good conservatives were saying, got them elected. And they had a chance to keep it going. And now they had a chance to do that with the speakership. And they could have elected a bunch of different people to that speakership. We talked about that last week. And there was a bunch of people's names who were getting thrown around as potential replacements for Boner.
Right, and we have some here, and this is an unconfirmed list, but we have Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny would have been better.
Right, at first base, Bugs Bunny.
Second base, Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
Third base.
Yosemite Sam.
Oh. What?
I think Sacco just shut us down.
What'd you do, Sacco?
No, tell the world your mistake. Nobody's listening. It'll be just between us.
Okay.
Okay, very personal. 1 minute countdown.
Here we go again.
So 1 minute Sacco, folks.
So, You figured going into the 114th Congress, Boner was out. Everything that we said, everything that we saw, everything we read is that there was going to be no more Boner in Congress. That the medication was going to finally wear off of the RINOs, and that they're going to elect somebody else.
Right, because he wasn't standing up firm
at all
for
what
anything
he believed.
Right.
And there was a bunch of different people that could have done better. So one of the biggest names out there was Gohmert as a replacement was one of the bigger ones. Webster got thrown around. McCarthy, a couple
like
other
the dictionary?
people. Like the dictionary, yeah.
Like thrown at Boner?
A total votes for others. Webster was 12, Gohmert was 3, Yoho was 2.
Isn't that a drink? Like a chocolatey flavored drink?
I think so.
Okay.
Or no, it's also a Pirate's Life for me. Yoho.
Okay.
Pirate's Life for me. Jordan 2, and then others, and a couple presents, which that you want to talk about. These people who voted present bother me. But either way, 25 people didn't vote
for
Boner, and the rest did. Now, I want to list the 23 that I think were brave and voted for somebody other.
At least the other 2 just voted present. They didn't vote for Boner.
But that bothers me because that says I'm not going to make a decision and be held accountable for my actions.
But they did make a decision.
Right.
They didn't vote for Boner.
Right. But here's the you had Amash from Michigan, Babin from Texas, Bloom from Iowa, Bratt from Virginia, Bridenstine from Oklahoma, Clausen, Florida, DeJarlis from Tennessee, Duncan.
Great donuts, by the way.
I love their donuts. Garrett, Jersey, Gibson, New York, Gosser, Arizona, Gohmert for himself, Hulskamp from Kansas, Jones, North Carolina, Representative King, Stephen King, that is, Massey from Kentucky, Meadows, North Carolina, Nugent, Florida, Parma, Alabama, Posey, Florida, Rigel from Virginia, Stutzman, love that name, Indiana, and Weber from Texas, Webster and Yoho, who self-voted, which I thought was pretty impressive.
And Nancy Pelosi. She didn't vote for him either.
She didn't vote for him either.
So you got to give her credit.
Yeah, you do have to.
Actually, she might have voted for him.
You never know.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But other than that, all of the other, up to and including Trey Gowdy, which kind of shocks me that he didn't vote for himself. Actually, no, he wouldn't vote for himself. I'm shocked he voted for Boner. All voted to reelect this knucklehead of a Speaker of a House. And it's sad that what happened in the midterms, that the power we had going into it, the fact that conservatism won the day, being a true conservative really won that election for these people. And all of a sudden, they just turn around and he is less than a rhino. I think calling him a rhino is actually
because rhinos are kind of tough.
Compliment, right? I mean more Republican.
Although they do have
only.
a big protruding.
It doesn't matter.
Thing.
Horn on their nose. You know.
Yeah, what do you think I was going to say?
I don't know. And then they go back and they pick Boner, and I can't for the life of me figure out why this keeps happening. If you're a conservative out there, and listen, there's some people that had Tea Party back, and most of the people that voted against him were Tea Parties or real conservatives. But if you are a Republican and you just got elected on the word of conservatism and living through as a conservative, you got elected for all those reasons, and you turn around and you vote for Boehner, why should you get a second chance? If you're a Republican and you're thinking about running against some of these people that are up for re-election, that's your win right there.
They deserve to lose.
They do.
They absolutely deserve to lose. Did you see him cry? And then Nancy Pelosi gave him like a big sloppy wet kiss, and like one leg went up in the air, and she like wrapped in his embrace as she handed him the gavel and said, "You're my big boner."
No, I missed that actually.
Oh, it's just something like that. It was similar. I heard about it. It was like it's an unconfirmed report, so I don't really know. That's what happens. But something to that effect. But he did actually cry.
He did actually cry, which
that's cute. That's
so
sweet.
Adorable.
You poor, sweet, crying, weepy
sucker.
Silly, seeping boner.
Let me ask you this. What
12.
do the Republicans hope to accomplish by reelecting Boner? Listen, we know, if nothing else, we know that he cannot work with Democrats in this administration. It's been proven time and again. Nothing has been done by him as the speaker, even in or out of power, at all since Obama's been in office. They've accomplished so little.
That's not true.
You could figure
they
it out.
They accomplished. Well, they sent that one thing to the Senate.
Right. But they sent him back. And, you know, I look at it like sending out a pitcher who gets just lit up every single time you put him on the mound.
Right.
Like the first time you
like that Giants pitcher?
Yeah. The first time you put him out, you're like, all right, well, maybe he had nerves. He was a rookie. And you put him out the second time, and you're like, well, it'll come around eventually. You know, you're thinking it's like Major League. Like he's like Ricky Vaughn. You're like, all right, well, maybe he just needs glasses. And all of a sudden, he's got the arm. We think he has potential. Put a pair of glasses on him. Nothing. When it's his 15th start of the season, he has an ERA over 50.
What's that pitch? It went straight down the middle of the plate at 90 miles per hour. That's his fastball. Oh, what was that pitch? It went right down the middle of the plate at 90 miles per hour. That's his curve. Oh, what was that pitch? It went right down. That's his
knuckleball.
Yeah.
No, that was the changeup. No, that was the sweeping curve. No,
right.
No, corkscrew. I mean, really? Because they're all fastballs down the middle. Yeah. He hasn't worked that part out yet. At some point, you're not going to pitch him anymore. And I want to know why the Republicans keep pitching this do-nothing nobody. And Ag said it in the chat room. I answered my own questions. They don't want to do anything. And I don't know if they feel that...
See, I think it's because the Republican Party has lost its way.
Yes.
I honestly believe the Republican Party today, and this is a problem with California Republican Party also, in my opinion, they're afraid to really come out and separate themselves and establish themselves as a true conservative party, as a real clear contrast to the progressive Democrats. They're so worried about pandering to the middle that they get lost in the left, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it really leaves the conservatives, which, look, this country is center-right.
Yeah.
It's center-right. It's not center-center. It's not center-left. It's center-right. And if you are a true alternative, if you are a true conservative party a la Ronald Reagan, you make that clear distinction. There's not a clear distinction. Look, I bring California up because I really think this is the way the National Party is going. Neil Kashkari was more liberal and progressive than Jerry Brown. Moonbeam. And that should sum it up for you right there.
Right.
The establishment Republican Party likes Boner because Boner is he's a panderer. And I also think he really likes the power. But what's even more funny about this is Boner said there'd be no retribution against people that didn't vote against him. And Michael Steele, the Republican mouthpiece, told the Daily Caller, Boner has said publicly there will be no retribution for no votes. I like how he didn't say there would be no retribution. He said Boner has said publicly there would be no retribution.
Right. Well, he said
votes.
this in front of everyone's face, but what happens behind their backs? And, you know,
right. Now, nobody's lost their seat on, say, the House Rules Committee, except for Daniel Webster and Richard Nugent.
Well, that's weird, right?
Yeah, so never mind. They didn't – well, wait, they've both voted for Webster.
Right.
Huh.
And yet, all
That's
of a sudden,
weird. That would be contradictory to what Boehner said.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, when asked about punishing people that dissented, Boehner said, I just don't think that's necessary.
Really? I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to do it anyways. Is that what he meant?
I don't know. Well, Webster's getting kicked off of the Rules Committee.
Yep.
That's weird.
That sounds like retribution. It can't be because he...
No, he's probably doing a horrible job there.
Right.
It just so happens that 12 people voted for him to replace
What?
Boehner.
That's weird. So what's Weepy's plan? What's the Weepy Boner's plan?
Look, what it should be is to send absolutely everything to Obama's desk.
Yes.
Congress should pass so much stuff and send everything to Obama and let Obama explain
why he didn't pass it.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
That's what I think.
And I know we're going to talk about one of them that's coming up, but I don't know why immigration bill wasn't set and ready to go right off the bat, and it's sent right to his desk. It should have been on his desk today. The Republicans that are in Congress should have had this set laid out, all agreed upon, and that way it can go to the floor. You can have the arguments, can get to the Senate, have the arguments sent to Obama's desk. Get him on record, get the Democrat in charge, the only real Democrat of power left, if you will, as far as the legislation process. You get him on record vetoing it and explaining why. And it doesn't matter why. The simple fact is, we talked about this after the midterms. Republicans have to prove that they can legislate. And they have to prove that they're going to legislate. And they have to put the ball into his court and keep him being the one that says no.
I think Republicans don't necessarily just need to legislate. I think Republicans need to lead.
Well, that's what I mean.
And I think they need to lead in a constitutional manner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they need to seize the power of Congress back. I think they need to
power of the purse.
Grab the
Big
power
one.
of the purse and wield it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to use every constitutional tool they can to be a check on not only the executive, but on the judiciary as well.
Yes.
Listen, if the judiciary is going to make these wingnut, far left, out of bounds decisions based on case law and garbage law as opposed to true constitutional law, and if our judges fail to go back to original intent, which is what our founders instructed them to do, then Congress should act as a check on the judiciary, which I don't know if they've done ever. And guess what? You can deal with their budget. You can check the judiciary, Congress. You can check the executive. And the reason that system is set up is to prevent this abuse of power. But all three branches are complicit in this. And that's what, in my humble opinion, the Republican Congress needs to do.
The guest in the chat room just dropped a really good statement. Is what distinguishes a leader? Seeing what others cannot see and molding a consensus.
Yeah, but and I would even take it a step further and saying
never.
that. What's that?
You never.
Right. No, I never take anything a step further. Nothing I do has
I've never
ever
heard
gone
you go,
too far.
yes.
It's weird, right? But
not a single horse was beaten.
You not only need to mold consensus, I see, but you also have to be able not just to mold that consensus, but to lead people in such a way where they want to follow.
Yes.
Right? To be that example and to be the one that they can look to as hey, we have this consensus, now where do we go from that? Somebody who was able to give that direction and be able to provide that propulsion or whatever is needed to start moving that direction and to let that energy kind of build and go for itself. So,
and I agree. And I think the other thing you have to be able to do as a leader, especially in Congress specifically, is to be able to not reach across the aisle. I don't necessarily agree with that, but speak across the aisle and give people an opportunity across the aisle, something that Democrats do not do, to have a voice, and have a voice in the sense of be involved and be productive, and get them to be productive. Don't get them to argue. Don't bring them into an argument. Get them to be productive. Because as much as we are so quick to be like, well, the left sucks with everything they say no matter what, blah, 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 blah.
That's not true, though.
It's not 100%
right?
true. They may have some good ideas. I'm not going to bet my house on it. But
no, I'm not going to agree with them
aside,
most of the time, right? But they do have some things
that you can get thrown into it,
and that are within constitutional orthodoxy.
Absolutely.
And I use the religious argument on this.
Yes.
You have certain religions. Look, Baptists are different than Catholics, which are different than Protestants, right? So name your religion. But there are several religions that can have different views of, say, end times. And those different, the 5-point Calvinists, whatever it is, and those different views can all be within accepted orthodox. Right? They can all be within certain orthodox biblical parameters. Just like, guess what? You could have some folks on the left and some folks on the right that have different views on things, but still fall within accepted constitutional orthodox.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point on that.
And you know what? They may be able to fill a gap that we couldn't fill. They may be able to throw an idea. And we've said it before. We said it again. There's some blue dog Democrats out there that will absolutely side with Republicans and conservatives if we give them the opportunity. And a lot of them won't outright do it, but if you set it up so their ideas are inputted and added and they're constitutional, then when it gets passed, it's a true bipartisan bill. Not because we're reaching across the aisle and we have to involve the other side, but because it was the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, the best thing to do for the nation as a law. We legislated. We led. We absolutely...
It's in the name. Legislate. You just said it right there.
But you have to do it, and you have to stop this jackassery that goes on in Congress right now, where everything turns into a fight just because.
You know what? We have a segment entitled Opening in General Jackassery.
Yes.
And I think we might have to sue Congress
for stealing
copyright
our ideas.
infringement and engaging in general jackassery, which clearly falls under the purview of SHR Media.
Right. I'm pretty sure it's copyrighted. So that's what the Republicans need to do, and they need to do it right away. Do the exact opposite of what the Democrats did. Don't shoot everything down they bring up. Build off the good ideas. Get rid of the bad ideas. And work as a Congress. Because, listen, there's a reason why Congress has an 11 or 12% approval rating. You suck, and everybody knows it. Your modus operandi right now sucks. Everything is a fight, and we, the American people, stare
But look at the
you.
changes we've made, right? Well, look at the
Did you just
changes
cut me
we've
off on a
made.
rant?
Oh, I apologize.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We as the American people are absolutely sick and tired of paying your friggin' salary for the rest of your damn lives to watch you sit there and do absolutely friggin' nothing. If I wanted to do that, I'd walk into the DMV and watch the person sit behind the counter to do that, and I'd be more okay with it on some level. But when it's a Congress and you're supposed to be doing something that I am paying you to do, I am paying you to make the right changes for this country or make no changes where they don't need to be made. Don't legislate just to say we passed something, you jackholes.
It's not a kidney stone.
Exactly. Don't put the filter out when you pee.
Right.
Do what's right or nothing.
Ever notice how Boehner looks like an NFL football?
Yes, I did.
So, like, take an NFL football, stand it up on its point, and draw eyes and a mouth.
And just do little teardroppers on either side.
Right, and it looks like Boehner. Look, we've changed. Look at the changes we've made in Congress. We have a new speaker. Oh. Yeah, never mind. Forget I said anything.
Oh. Well, fortunately, though, somebody other than Mitch McConnell will lead. Right. It's going to be a long 2 or 4 years, depending on how you want to look at it.
Are you kidding me? This is the best thing that could have happened to SHR.
Oh, I know.
We now have material.
If everything worked just
for
right,
the next 2 years.
Who the hell would tune in to listen to us? There'd be nothing to bitch about.
Exactly.
We do nothing but bitch on this show.
They're going to listen to the Boner segment, the Boner Files.
And those geniuses in Congress today abolished all gun control laws and blah, blah, and we have nothing else for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Hey, those awesome people.
Let's talk about why
Congress,
that's a great idea.
You know what they went to? They went to a flat tax. They got rid of the whole tax code, so we can't talk about that ever again. Gun control, taxes. Hey, the idea of church and state has been finally legislated. That was blown out of proportion, and that just because
Jefferson wrote it in a letter somewhere.
Right.
That, yeah.
So that's done.
Hey, we have a convention of the states called. We're actually going to be repealing the 17th Amendment. Sackheads were right. Agenda 17. Good job. It's succeeded.
We would have like 3 months of shows, and then we'd be talking about underwater basket weaving.
No, we'd come up with
I'd
other
be talking
stuff.
about women, but I don't know.
The problem is, Sacco,
that'd be a short show, Sacco. It'd be like everything you know about women. It'd be a 1 minute, like you said yourself. 1 minute, Sacco.
And now over to Sacco.
Exist. Done.
Now over to Sacco. What do you know about women?
Supposedly, there's this place that's like a unicorn. I don't know.
When we come back, as we are up against a break, we're
Stuff.
going to talk about.
Just say stuff.
We're going to talk about more stuff.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be
The
awesome.
president's already drawn a line in the sand on something that, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Is that some kind of Middle East terrorist kind of
that's where
racist
this stuff
wisecrack?
comes from, right? No, just stop that.
I don't know. You said
Can we
line
talk
in the
about
sand,
baking
and then you winked at me. I mean, I didn't know where you were going with it.
We're going to be back at 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Network on the SHR.
Chocolate chip.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Who listens to the Andrea Kaye Show? Let's find out as we eavesdrop on listener Roger Johnson in Encinitas.
You know, if our policy is going to be bring any child who comes across the border and says coordination, we have to take them in.
Okay, so apparently Roger fell asleep in the middle of my brilliant political tirade, and now he plans to sue me because I put him on the air, sleeping. Obviously, he's a liberal.
Snoring, not an option while listening to The Andrea Kaye Show, Tuesday mornings at 11 on Financial News and Talk.
You know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show on the SHR Media Network. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 5 p.m. for the Evan Miller Report, followed by the exceptional one himself. Then on Friday, the premiere of the Liz Laura Show here on the SHR Media Network and Pundit Press at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. in the East, followed by Evan Miller immediately afterwards. It's going to be a great show. Make sure you check it out. If you're listening and you're not in the chat room, shame on you. Go to shrmedia.com and click live chat. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Sackheads and on Facebook. And you should also follow Sacco on Twitter. That's kind of a big one.
Sacco, it's like sackheads.
Sackhead Sacco.
Right.
You know how hard that is to say when you're drunk? Trust me. I've
Yeah,
said it
I
a
do.
bunch- I was going to say, we found that out in the past.
We did. Remember, we actually had a bet one night where we said, hey, how many drinks would it take
Before we can't say it
before we
anymore.
can't say Sackhead Sacco? And I said, for you or me? Because for me, it'd be like two.
Yeah.
And for you, it'd be like 27.
Well,
28.
I got in under 26, so that was pretty good. But, double scotches will do that to you every single time. So we talked a little bit
You
before.
were drinking old fashions. Who are you kidding?
I love old fashions.
I know you do.
We were talking a little bit before we went to break about some of the bills that Congress should be working on and passing. And the
Keystone is the first one that we both talked about.
Right.
And what's funny, before Congress was even, the new Congress was even sworn in, like literally right after the oaths of office were taken, Obama said, yeah, if they send me Keystone, I'm just going to veto it.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother. Wait, what?
It does nothing but benefit Canada, and
Canada.
It's not really going to help us here too much. That's not very productive.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a quote. That's a quote from Mitch McConnell. He says, "I assure you, threatening to veto a jobs and infrastructure bill within minutes of a new Congress taking the oath of office, a bill with strong bipartisan support, is anything but productive." And he's right. I don't always agree with Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, but I do over this one. Look, people act like this thing, it's a brand new pipeline being laid throughout the entire United States. It's not. It's basically a piece of plumbing that's going to connect two existing sets of plumbing. You're basically running a sprinkler line for oil from your house to the garage out back. Is basically what you're doing. Am I wrong?
No.
Look, the
you're not wrong
infrastructure
at
is
all.
already in Canada to deliver oil. There's already this infrastructure in America to deliver oil to various locations. This is a piece of pipe. It's a tube that's going to connect a couple points.
You're essentially
liberals
adding a new water line in your house.
Yes.
You're not ripping down the house to lay out some new lines.
It's PVC, practically.
Practically.
Look, this isn't rocket science here. It's plumbing.
It's plumbing. It's oil plumbing.
It's oil plumbing.
How hard could it be?
Right.
And I'm no expert. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm no expert. But, the reality of the situation is he's only doing this to be difficult, in my opinion, because there's nothing but benefits to the Keystone Pipeline. Every economist has talked about it. Jobs, even if they're only temporary jobs, you get that thrown around a lot. When we talk about adding jobs, you hear, well, they're only temporary. Okay, so it's going to be for 2 years, this guy's going to make a salary pipe fitting and doing whatever oil riggers do. I'm not going to pretend to know. But that's a job for 2 years. You're right. It's not a 50-year government job where you can sit on your ass and do nothing.
But still 2 years?
Right. Or a year and a half even. Or a year. It doesn't matter. It's getting people back to work. It's putting food on their table for a short amount of time.
Absolutely.
And it's keeping them from having to
and it gives them a skill.
Take government assistance.
What
right.
other jobs are going to come available?
There will be permanent jobs with this.
Yes.
It will also lower and you look at oil prices right now, and it's trading somewhere around $48. Oil's gone through the floor. And I was listening to an economist.
Except for California, where a new tax just came.
Right.
So
they're doing everything. They're doing everything they can to make it as expensive as possible here. And they're doing it all over the place. Gasoline is down. I think the average in the country is like $2.12 right now. You look at diesel fuel, which is what every truck and train that gets stuff across the country, it's still up around $3. And diesel isn't that hard to make. It's not that much different. It's different than gasoline, but it's not that much more expensive to produce, where there's almost an 80-cent difference. If the cost of diesel goes down, then the cost of product goes down because it costs less to ship it.
Shouldn't diesel be less expensive than regular gas?
It used to be.
It's garbage.
It used to be. Diesel.
It's basically like the flux capacitor.
Diesel fit Mr. Fusion.
It's garbage, yes.
Diesel 15 years ago was always 20 cents cheaper than gasoline was. And I can remember, I used to travel a lot on buses when I was a kid, and you look at the gas prices, it was ridiculously cheap. You know, you'd see the bus driver hand $100 bill to the gas pump, and it would fill up the humongous tank. But the economy's in a lot of trouble. Oil's way down, and that's something that they're saying. It's either going to continue to go through the floor, or it's going to jump through the roof. And a lot of it has to do with supply and demand.
Necessarily skyrocket?
Yes.
That's weird. I almost heard that before.
You know, that is the price of oil could also go through the roof. And it's a sign that the economy is not recovering. And, you know, I enjoy paying nothing, much less for my gas at the pump. I'm literally saving $30 a fill-up on my vehicle. And that's a big deal for me. And it's a big deal for a lot of people. People can now drive further for their job. They can, and save a lot of money. I think you saw that around Christmas where there was more money to spend for gifts and stuff because all of the retail stores are showing good profits. But the supply is amazing.
Oil company profits are not that. They're what, 9%?
Yeah.
Like 7 to 9%. That is, what's Apple's profit margin? Is it over 50
40
or
or
60%?
50, yeah, it's huge.
That's a big, evil, nasty corporation.
Right. Nobody should use Apple.
Nobody
at all.
should use Apple ever. That's a huge profit margin.
But, the economy is in serious trouble, and, everyone's pointing to supply and demand. One of the problems that we have right now is we have more oil than we know what to do with.
I know what to do with it.
I know what to do with it, too.
Build an 1,180-mile pipeline from frickin' Canada through Montana, South Dakota, and Nebraska, and carry it to the refineries along the Texas Gulf Coast.
Think about how much that will save.
That's what I know what to do with it.
If diesel prices go down and oil continues to go down, think about how much that will save the bullet train to nowhere from Fresno to South Fresno.
Right. You know what? Let's load barrels of oil on it. Let's transport oil from Merced to Bakersfield.
But by passing
Is it a farm labor vehicle? Because there is a huge population in Merced
that would benefit
criminal aliens.
Yes.
That would benefit maybe working in the onion fields. We just solved
all the problems.
Case of the California bullet train, ladies and gentlemen. It is a shield to move labor from Merced to work the onion fields in Bakersfield and back again. It is a farm labor vehicle. Now we know why there is huge cost involved and why we're going to push it through anyways.
But if you look at how much, good job, dude.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I don't know why I didn't see it sooner.
I don't know why you didn't either.
And now we know why Mexico is such a huge supporter of it.
Absolutely.
And the Obama administration.
But we're starting to get oil in our reserves that to the levels that were 20 years ago because the production's there, but the demand isn't there. Why isn't the demand isn't there? Because there's been this big push for fuel-efficient vehicles because...
Not by me.
No, but...
I drive a truck.
But when
four-wheel drive. It takes a lot of gas.
When Obama took over...
Drives over Priuses.
He went after fossil fuels, and he let the environmentalists have their way and pushed people away. And now you have... we have all this oil sitting around, and there's no one to sell it to. It's not going fast enough.
They can sell it to me.
I'll buy it for cheap. $48 a barrel is about half as much as it was 6 months ago.
So here, I have a question.
Yeah.
If Obama vetoes this Keystone bill,
yes,
which he probably will because he's my douchebag of the week, if he does, do you think that Congress could muster 2/3 in order to override his veto?
Yes.
Do you really?
Absolutely. I really do. I think that they will get it. I think you'll see.
There's an overwhelming support in this country for Keystone.
Yeah. And that's...
Not the beer. I mean,
no,
there's some support for that,
I'm sure
too.
I don't know why,
mostly in trailer parks.
Mostly trailer parks and in colleges.
Right, mostly in colleges and high schools.
I do think there's a 2/3. I think you'll see some Democrats get on board.
They already are on board.
I think you'll see a lot of people get on board. I think...
Not the bullet train,
right. Nobody's going to ride. Nobody's going to ride the bullet train
except
to nowhere.
for farm workers, and we already talked about that.
Right, and that'll be exempt.
Dude, we're solving problems on this show.
It's all we do is solve problems. But I think a lot of people that got away from fuel, especially large truck companies, stuff like that, need to start getting back on it because that's going to get our prices in the stores lower and cheaper. I think that the average consumer will be lower and cheaper on the products that you buy because it costs less to ship. Shipping's a large part of your cost when you go to a store.
You know what we need to figure out as far as an alternative fuel? And I know there's a way to do it because light is energy. Rainbows.
Rainbows?
Yeah.
Harness the power of rainbows?
If we can harness rainbows.
Yes.
And
I'm with you on this.
Come up with like a Prius that runs on rainbows and unicorn droppings.
Yes.
We would be somewhere.
Right. I think that would be awesome. And also
it would be very cost effective.
You also have to get the feeling of self-importance that the operator of that vehicle, you have to be able to harness that as fuel as well.
Right.
How important I am to society that I can run my own vehicle.
It's ego-driven.
It is instead of
it's ego.
Ego-driven.
So ego boost, which you and I don't need. Neither one of us.
You know what? Every time you have an environmentalist pull up in a Prius or one of those little cars.
In my big truck, I'm going to say this is my ego boost.
Just turn around and ask him, hey, is that an ego boost? You mean eco? No, an ego boost. It runs on how good you think and important you think you are.
Right, and how good you think you feel.
Right.
Right.
So, oil price is something to really watch about. The other thing that's going to go down is travel. Airline tickets will start to drop because it'll be cheaper. And more people will start to travel. That means more businesses, perhaps smaller businesses, be able to travel and get more business as well.
We're going to be traveling in July.
To
Vegas.
A small business traveling to Vegas in July for Freedom Fest.
And if anybody tries to take us over, we'll be armed to the teeth, probably with nothing illegal.
Not at all.
Right.
At all. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. Except for that MiG that'll be strapped to the roof.
Well, but
there's no armament on it, so we'll be good. Let's sail from our aircraft carrier from San Francisco around. There's no place to dock in Nevada.
How about this?
But then we'll fly from our flight deck of our aircraft carrier.
No, there is a place to dock close to Nevada. Somewhere, I think if you take all the water canals and everything from Los Angeles and ride them up.
In a carrier?
Yeah, to Inyo County. You can park there because...
In Inyo County.
We'd
be in Inyo County.
Inyo County.
Right.
And it's a short hop from there over.
A skip and a jump, I think. Maybe. It may just be a hop and a skip.
I don't think it's a full jump.
I don't think the jump's there.
And we can hang out with the good people of Inyo. I'm just saying that's one suggestion.
I know some tremendous people. Well, one. In
awesome.
Inyo. Yeah, awesome.
And I like Inyo County just because it's that name. Inyo. Face, county. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Wait,
I'm
what?
in your business. I'm in your Kool-Aid. Where's Ken?
Where is Ken? Because he just understood everything you said.
He can translate.
You were basically like Mrs. Cleaver on the airplane.
Just hang loose, blood. She gonna catch you on the flip side of the wild side of some messine.
Right.
What it is, little mama? I paid my rap. Cut me some slack, Jack. Jive-ass turkey ain't got no style anyways.
Ken, I don't know what he just said.
Oh, man. So much is going on here at this network. I am so excited. You got it going on.
I do. You didn't tell the folks about the Twitter pics we put up.
We are. If you are
Did
following
you put them
us,
up yet?
They are on Twitter. The I Am Charlie and Je Suis Charlie pics. They're all up, one from each one of the members of the Sackheads crew. They are on Twitter at Sackheads. Also, follow our producer.
Did you label who's who? Because I'm pretty sure people get us confused still.
I don't think there's any problem with that. You're the tall one. I'm the wide one. It's pretty easy. Sacco's the hairy one.
Right.
I mean, there's really no...
There's no, yeah.
It's all nose, fat, and hair in the studio. And also follow our producers, Sacco Taco 1. This I know. I saw that. You know what was funny is I was looking for that when you made your Twitter because I saw it pop up and I tried to just do Sacco Taco, which is your little catchphrase for everything. And someone had the audacity to take it. And the fact that you didn't go with Sackhead Sacco kind of makes me sad.
No, you were angry about that.
I was.
I want you to know, Sacco, that I got
Twitter
a phone call.
is super important to me. You know this.
I got a phone call. Sacco didn't even take Sackhead Sacco as his Twitter handle. And then I had to buy him coffee. And then he was bitching because it wasn't Dunkin', it was Starbucks.
I want to know...
he was all boo-boo face.
I want to know if we're going to get Sackhead Clint onto Twitter. That would be fun.
Sackhead Clint doesn't do anything. I don't have a Facebook. I don't Instagram. I don't tweet, Twitter,
Dude,
whatever the hell
I
it
would
is.
love to see your tweets on Twitter because it would just be a mash of words, no space, all one.
All caps, all the time.
You literally would spell out hashtag. So we are so excited about the changes coming up here on the SHR network. So we are going to Freedom Fest. Liz
The problem
Lawrence
is I would
here.
never go to sleep because I couldn't let anything lie.
This Friday, as we started on Tuesday, this Friday, Southern Sense is going to be on the SHR Media Network, and you can listen to them as well. Our good friend over at Pundit Press, Dan Butcher, is coming back here and there. He's not doing it all the time, but we're hoping to be able to kind of get him into that as long as Mrs. Butcher doesn't kill me for suggesting it. And whenever Dan's on, we're going to try to carry that as well. We just got a lot going on in 2015 that we're excited about.
I want to have a Hans Gruber update.
Okay.
So there was a 2009 policy brief put out by Hans. We call him Hans. Just because that's the bad guy from Die Hard. But Gruber put out a policy brief October 2009 that basically said, Obamacare has no cost controls, and it might not be affordable after all.
What?
I'll rewind. So
I was kind of being facetious.
I know. So they kind of knew about this a while ago. And another thing he said on October 2nd, 2009, in a lecture that he gave, he says, quote, "The problem is it starts to go hand in hand with the mandate. You can't mandate insurance that's not affordable. This is going to be a major issue." Yeah, I'll let that sink in.
It's not going to be not. Really?
Right. He says, you can have whatever you want. You just have to pay for it.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
Uh-huh. In 2012, Gruber said, "I wish that President Obama could have stood up and said, I don't know if this bill is going to control costs. It might not. We're doing our best, but let me tell you what it's going to do." What?
If you like,
I read this and I had to share my little Hans Gruber. But you can read the policy brief. If you go, just Google Syracuse University policy brief. It's Universal Health Insurance Coverage, Progress and Issues by Jonathan Gruber. He doesn't go under our nickname Hans.
Which he should.
Which he should.
Because he's a bad guy.
And you should read this. Now, he sounds awesome when he introduces himself in this. It says Jonathan Gruber, Ph.D. I don't know why you would spell FD, but that's what he did. Jonathan Gruber, FD. Maybe that's the sound his ego makes.
I think it's Pretty Holy Day. I don't know what it means.
I think that's the sound his ego makes when he shuts the door to his Prius.
Yep.
And it's trying to, right. He's a professor.
That's the sound it makes when the battery's low. You press the gas and he goes, foot.
Well, that's his title.
Hans Gruber, foot.
He's a professor of economics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he has taught since 1992. He is also a research associate and the director of healthcare program at the National Bureau of Economic Research. He is a co-editor of the Journal of Public Economics and an associate editor of the Journal of Health Economics. He was elected to the Institute of Medicine in 2005. Dr. Gruber's research focuses on the areas of bullshit.
What a D-bag. Anyhow,
but read the policy brief because it's about 30 pages ish, give or take, and it lays it all out, and it is amazing. He actually talks about in the later sections moving forward incrementally.
Oh.
The public is not yet ready to perceive the need for healthcare reform. The analogy is something like the different responses to global warming and CFCs. Incrementally. Where have I read that?
Nudge.
Gosh, if there was a book that somebody wrote that had a similar mind, Cass Sunstein, whose wife is Susan Powers, like a UN ambassador, who wrote a book, something about moving incrementally. That would make this whole thing come together and actually just set a tone for this
Cass
entire
Sunstein.
administration. Yeah, don't tell me. If there's a book out there that exists,
Nudge by Cass
that
Sunstein.
would really, really scare me.
Nudge by Cass
Fortunately,
Sunstein.
it's not that I know of. Did you say Super Fudge? That was a good
Super
book.
Fudge
Judy
was
Bloom?
a great book. Judy.
Yeah, is that what you're talking about?
How to Eat Fried Worms, another good one.
Right. That's right. Nudge by our friend Cass Sunstein.
Yeah.
Or Super Fudge, whichever one.
I like Super Bad.
Weird.
Superfly.
That was a good movie.
It was.
Super Fudge and Superfly. Jimmy.
Right.
Superfly.
Snooka.
Snooka. Snooky.
Snooga.
Snooky.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
Why?
I don't know. It just doesn't sound good.
A couple things out of the chat. Mrs. Rob, who's been joining us this evening in chat, says, try being the employer who has to administer Obamacare. It's a god-awful mess. If you want something usable, they will take your arm and your leg as well as your money. And Obamacare does nothing for health care, but everything to create another bureaucratic mess. Absolutely couldn't agree more with all three statements. Said I have a person close to me who is a health care attorney and has been warning from this from the very, very beginning. I also got scolded by Dan, the man Butcher, a good friend over at Pundit Press, because I pushed Southern Sense. I did not say that he was the co-host of Southern Sense with Annie. And the reason I didn't...
You just got scolded?
I think I got
scolded. You should have gotten spanked.
The reason I didn't mention it is because the man needs no introduction. He's Dan. Dan needs no introduction whatsoever.
Apparently he does, Sean.
And
you dropped the ball on that. And rather than just apologize, you're going to come up with some Boehner-esque excuse about why you failed. Stop being a tap-dancing politician and just say sorry.
I'm sorry.
Dan, I apologize on behalf of the Sackheads Radio
Dan Butcher
Show.
Show will be returning regularly on Monday nights here shortly. No time has been given. Dan also does win the prize because at the beginning of the show, when I tweeted the picture of Sacco out, I said somebody has to look for something that's in the picture that...
Did anybody catch it?
Dan.
Okay.
Dan wins the prize. I'm not going to say what it is. Because,
he put it out there.
Dan, if you listen, when Sacco's not in the cage, we have to keep extra sets of handcuffs around and keep him from
And that's not
running
the
too
only
wild.
set of handcuffs.
No, there's the two on his legs that you can't see, the leg irons.
Those are the leg irons, and he also has some waist restraints.
Right. So, I mean...
you didn't see the XD45 that is sitting right
here,
ready to go, just in case he goes sideways.
Yeah, so
or as Sean
that's
puts
all
it,
preparation.
sidewards.
It's almost like when they're moving a wild animal at the zoo and they have like 5 guys with the darts, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So
right, or like in the prisons where you have like a 4-officer move, or
right.
So like that. He's practically high control.
What you couldn't see is the movers, the actual guys with the white suits standing there and with the cattle prods.
Right,
so,
and the full like turnouts for Biohazard.
When Sacco leaves here, he has the Hannibal Lecter mask on, and he's on essentially a dolly. So
right, but it's not because he'll bite you; it's that he eats anything in sight, like literally anything.
You should see that kid rip through some. Oh, and the Free Sacco is starting the chat room. Free Sacco hashtag Free Sacco, all over Twitter. I want that trending at some point. I want that to be in the top 10 U.S. trends. On Twitter is hashtag Free Sacco.
Dude, some liberal group is going
to
go catch
crazy
on and just be like, "Yeah, Free Sacco."
Sacco.
You need to have a Free Sacco protest. I just wonder how many people would come support it without having any idea.
Oh, I think that would be awesome. We should do that at some point. Free Sacco. Sacco is answering an important question Dan asked. This is why I love Dan. Is he totally gets us. How much beer is left in the studio fridge? 6, because Sacco's into one as we speak.
I don't think it's that many.
No, it might be down to 2 or 3.
It may only be down to a couple. Hang on, I'm going to look right now.
I'll go shopping this week.
Hang on, I'm getting
up. Make sure you check out The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And he's also on Pundit Press, our good friend Agador. Great show. He does his sign up and get his emails and get his shows through the emails. They are absolutely outstanding. Ag says that we could do a college kids to sign a petition. There's 5 in the fridge.
5
Sacco
beers
was
in the
1
fridge.
off. So that means Sacco killed 2 between the fridge and here. Make sure you check out our good friends at Pundit Press. Great partners of ours. Great people. Amazing articles. Dan wrote an update on the Obamacare called the Obamacare Catastrophe. Just getting started. Make sure you check that out.
And I have a question for Dan.
You have 30 seconds to ask
Dan,
it.
why are you called the Butcher?
Oh, that's a different story altogether.
Different story altogether.
Yeah, we're not allowed to discuss that.
I apologize. State lines, I get
NSA,
it.
the whole 9 yards.
I get it.
Folks, that's it for our show this evening. Check us out next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, here on the SHR Media Network. Check in tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the 5 p.m. for the Evan Miller Report, followed by the exceptional one himself. Friday, make sure you check out the Liz Loris Show.
Are we
going
to
to
bring the button to Vegas?
Heck yeah.
I'm going to push that thing in Vegas, just so you know.
I can't wait. Make sure you check out Liz's show here on the SHR Media Network and Pundit Press, starting this Friday, 1 p.m. on the East, 4 in the West. Make sure you check it out. You do not want to miss it. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you next week.
God bless America. God bless the people of France.
Amen.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Paris Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Radio. Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.